Hello, everyone. Uh, Welcome to a short session on the topic One Nation, One Election. And my name is Siddharth, and I would be taking this session, right? And so let me tell you first why One Nation, One Election? Why not any other topic? So One Nation, One Election because recently on the Constitution Day, that is 26th November, our Prime Minister mooted this idea. He said that we need to think about this idea because having frequent elections, uh, like in 1 year there are several elections, that has several drawbacks. So we need to think about this, we need to discuss this, and we need to move forward on this idea. That's what our Prime Minister suggested. So that's why we are discussing it, because it falls in your general studies GS paper 2 in mains, and polity GS paper 2 polity part, right, in mains, and as well as in prelims polity, right. So दोनों जगह कहीं भी क्वेश्चन आ सकता है इस पे. So we will study it in a framework and try to cover it holistically. The framework would be as such: first we will discuss the idea, what is the idea. Second, we will discuss arguments for this idea, that is why it is being suggested. Next, we will discuss what are the counter arguments, like why there are people who are opposing this idea. And lastly, we will see if there is a way ahead, if there is some middle ground, some middle path, something innovative is there that can be done, right. And let me also tell you about myself, right. My name is Siddharth Kumar, and here you can read about my journey, my UPSC journey, right. I had given interview in CSE 2019, and you can see I have written UPSC mains 4 times, UPPSC mains in 2019, result is awaited. My score in prelims have been decently good, right. It has been like 134 in 2016, the cutoff was 116. The cutoff here was around 100 something, like 110, somewhere around that, right. And here the cutoff was somewhere around 99. Okay, so I have a decent amount of idea about this exam, like what is the demand of the exam and how to go about it. Okay, so and here you can also see my mark sheets. You can see 138 in 2016, 134 in 2017, 111 in 2019. I hadn't given the exam in 2018. And lastly, this is my 2019 mains mark sheet, right. So you can see that I have decent marks here. I have a good amount of knowledge in public administration, right. And so you can see that. So that is about me. Now let's get into the topic. Right, what is the idea? So the idea, firstly, it was given by our Prime Minister in 2015, right. This idea was mooted in 2015. Then again recently, as I told you, it has been called, the idea has pitched this, the Prime Minister has pitched this idea again during the Constitution Day. So the idea calls for what the One Nation One Election means is, One Nation One Election means simultaneous election. Simultaneous here means that at one time, maybe a month in 5 years, we will designate a month. Within this month, in different phases, we can have elections to Lok Sabha, Vidhan Sabha, as well as local bodies, right. This is the idea. Okay, and related to this idea is also what we also called for a common voter list, that there should be one voter list for Lok Sabha, state legislative assembly, and local bodies. So these are the two key aspects of the idea of one nation one election, that there will be simultaneous election, that once in a 5 year there will be election for Lok Sabha, Vidhan Sabha, and local bodies, and there will be a common voter list for all of them, right. This is the idea. Now let's jump into why this idea is being mooted, right. Now, first and foremost argument for this idea is that frequent elections causes frequent imposition of model code of conduct. You must have heard about it. If not, let me tell you about this in briefly. See, whenever there is an election, the Election Commission of India imposes a model code of conduct to ensure that the elections are free and fair, there is no violence, it is properly conducted. This model code of conduct is applied to political parties, candidates, and other entities involved in election, right? And it ensures that there are certain guidelines that political parties and candidates should follow, right? If they do not follow, Election Commission of India can impose penalty on them. So this was what about model code of conduct. Now what happens whenever there is election? A model code of conduct is imposed. It is imposed for a significant period, say 2 months, right? So what it does is whenever this model code of conduct is imposed, it impedes development work. And how it does that? Because during that time, one of the restrictions under model code of conduct on government is that it cannot announce populist schemes to influence the voters, to unduly influence the voters, right? Or if it has to take, and even if it has to undertake some important scheme, it has to take the permission of Election Commission of India. So all this impedes the development work, right? You can understand, say there is an important work to be carried out in some state where there is election to be conducted. Now, if central government wants to, or if other government wants to do that work, first of all, if it is populist, the election commission can refuse that work, or even if it wants that, it has to take permission. And getting permission takes time, therefore it impedes the development work. Second aspect to it is the large amount of expenditure, right? Every time you conduct elections, right, every time there is large amount of expenditure by all stakeholders, not only government. Obviously, you know expenditure. There are so many electronic voting machines. They are transported to the remotest corner of our country for elections, right? So it involves expenditure. So the idea is, say, if you would have one nation, one election, there would be economies of scale, right? So if there would be economies of scale, certainly we can economize on the expenditure, right? The next argument is that the frequent election brings the problem of black money. Now, how black money is linked to frequent elections? I think you must know, but let me make that link very clear, right? Now, you must know that there is a report there is an agency, Association for Democratic Reforms. It has given a report that almost 70 to basically 80% of the donations, whatever that come to the political parties, are unaccounted, right? Similarly, even the expenditures, significant expenditures that take place in elections are not properly accounted. Okay, the expenditures that are taking place in elections are well above the limits set by Election Commission of India, right? For instance, Naveen Chawla, who is former Chief Election Commissioner, has said that the recent 2019 elections, the expenditure was more than 50,000 crore, right? Now, 50,000 crore, you can understand. Election Commission of it breaches the limits set by Election Commission of India by a large amount, right? So you can think that if this much money is involved, and if it is coming from undisclosed sources, naturally you can think that naturally suspicion goes that it is black money. And how it leads to generation? Say if political party uses black money to get into the election, isn't it obligated to the other party to give them some returns, right? So thereby it encourages corruption, it encourages generation of black money. So that is another negative impact. There is lot of diversion of, obviously, you know, lot of administrative staff and security forces like CRPF and all those are involved in conducting elections so that the elections are safely conducted, right? It causes something what is known as administrative lethargy, right? Now, since the administrative staff is already engaged in its normal work, this is something that is additional. So if it comes upon it, naturally, one additional work is added to their responsibilities. There are other responsibilities, primarily developmental responsibilities or maintaining law and order, are impacted, right? It disrupts normal life. You know, whenever elections are conducted, there is some form of disruption. Like you know, normally you get कि जिस दिन election होता है उस दिन छुट्टी होती है सबकी, right? So for you it's good, but for businesses it might, for some businesses it might disrupt. Or there are other kinds of disruption, like there are restrictions, there are dry day. You can think of this as some kind of disruption, right? Next up, it adversely impacts the federal relations. How come? Right? You have recently seen that West Bengal में election हो रहे हैं, right? And due to that, you must have seen that Trinamool Congress, the party in power in the West Bengal, and the BJP, the party in the power at the center. Now both are contesting there, but you must have seen the rivalry and tension between them. So in such a scenario, is cooperation possible? In such a scenario, if say there is an issue where cooperation is needed between center and state, it is difficult to achieve. I won't say it is not possible, but it is difficult to achieve. Let's move on. The next thing is it aggravates what is communalism, casteism, right? Now this is the irony. We have laws, we have clearly Representation of People Act says that one should not ask votes on the basis of you know caste, on the basis of religion, right? But you can see that there is this idea of going around of vote bank politics. So this creates divisions in the society, and such divisions at times have even led to violent crashes and communal riots. So this is another adverse impact that frequent elections have, right? Lastly, it promotes populism. How come? Because every political party in its manifesto makes big promises, right? Now, how they will fulfill it is not known, or how effective those policies are for actual welfare, it is not known. But it is populist policy because people believe that they want it. Maybe it is good for people, maybe it is not. But so that's how it adversely affects the policy making, because when they promise it is in their manifesto, naturally when they come in their power, they cannot make more better or rational policies. Rather, they have to tend to lean towards the populist policies. So these are all the arguments for one nation, one election. Basically, here it highlights that what are the problems caused by having frequent elections, and to overcome these problems, we need one nation, one elections. This is the core idea. Okay, remember this, right? Now let's move on to the counter arguments. The first counter argument is clearly states that frequent elections bring greater accountability. I think it's pretty straightforward. See, if there is an election, political party is answerable to the people, right? You must have known that politicians only go to the people and listen to the people when there is elections, right? You must have heard this, like Hindi में एक कहावत type है कि like for politicians अपना काम बनता भाड़ में जाए जनता, right? So whenever there is election, they are accounted. So that's why frequent elections are important, right? So this is the thing about the frequent elections. Next is that again it undermines the simultaneous election of like one nation, one election. The idea of one nation, one election would undermine parliamentary democracy. How? Parliamentary democracy means a government run by the representatives of the people, right? And the government will be representative of the people of the country as long as it enjoys majority in the parliament or the legislative assembly or any other the elected body, right? But if it loses majority, then it does not enjoy the confidence of the people. It is right. It does not represent the people, right? If it loses majority, the government does not. But if there is one nation, one election, then even if it loses majority, it will continue. It will be in power till the time the time for election comes up, right? Till then, it would remain in power. So this undermines the parliamentary democracy, because in that time an unrepresentative government would be there in the state. So that is how it undermines the parliamentary democracy. Then another important aspect is that every state, every locality has some local issues. There are local issues, right? And then there are national issues. Okay, so when there will be one nation, one election, there is every possibility that national issues may overshadow the local issues. So what is the problem with this? See, the idea of federalism was given to accommodate the local issues, because we are a very diverse country. And if we do not accommodate the local issues, the local identities, then it is going to cause a problem for our unity. And that's why we had federalism. But now if we have one nation, one election, and if national issues overshadow the local issues, then what would happen? What would happen is that people will feel oppressed. Then that could pose a threat to our unity and integrity. There may be separatist tendencies, right? And even vice versa can happen, that there could be a possibility that local issues could overshadow national issues, that in that region people will vote based on local issues. So that is also a problem. So that is another counter argument to one nation, one election. Apart from this, logistics, right? Huge amount of logistics would be required in terms of manpower, cost, EVMs. इतने सारे EVMs नहीं होंगे शायद से हमारे पास कि एक बार में हर किसी का इलेक्शन करा लिया जाए. So logistics is huge. It would be very challenging. So that is another. Apart from this, how feasible would it be politically, and given the history if we see, because in past 17 Lok Sabhas, 7 have been dissolved prematurely. in past 17 Lok Sabhas, 7 Lok Sabhas have been dissolved prematurely. So by saying this, you can see कि कितना ये idea चल पाएगा. There is always a doubt कि how much this idea would be feasible. And lastly, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, one of the founding fathers of our constitution, argued the preference for accountability, right? Dr. B.R. Ambedkar argued that, in our constitution, while making our constitution, the makers of the constitution had given more preference to accountability rather than stability, because one nation one election would bring, certainly it would bring stability, because एक ही बार election होगा, government गिर जाए, वो हो जाए, कोई भी हो जाए, but election एक ही बार होगा, right? So it brings stability, but it undermines accountability. But Dr. B.R. Ambedkar says that the makers of the constitution had, like, he was one of the founders, and he had argued for that in our constitution we give preference to accountability. Okay, so these are the counter arguments. Let's see if there is a middle path. Let's see. So here is some suggestions, some innovative suggestions that could be act as middle path. One is constructive no confidence motion. So like आपने no confidence motion तो सुना होगा. What is constructive no confidence? In no confidence motion, there is, if a political party there is a motion in the parliament that whether a political party enjoys the confidence of the lower house or not, right? And if it loses the no confidence motion, then it is removed. It is removed from the government, right? But a constructive no confidence motion means that along with not expressing the confidence in the existing government, there is also an alternate parties or group of political parties in which the confidence is expressed. Means it is saying that remove these people and bring in these people. So allow this type of no confidence motion rather than simple no confidence motion, and this is called constructive. It is being used in Germany. The next aspect is obviously build political consensus on this idea. There is need for discussion among all political parties, and the political consensus needs to be evolved. Another good idea by Election Commission of India, is 1 year, 1 election, right? Instead of having 1 year, 5 elections, or instead of having 1 election in 5 years, we can have 1 year, 1 election. I hope you get the point. Then likewise, a parliamentary standing committee suggested 2 elections in 5 years. And lastly, it is also being suggested by Law Commission in its white paper on simultaneous election that Prime Minister and Chief Minister should be elected by full house. Now, how will it help? Basically, when Prime Minister and Chief Minister is elected by full house, it shows that he has the confidence of the full house. So in that case, the possibility of government collapsing reduces significantly, right? So this is how it will help, and this was suggested by Law Commission of India in its white paper on simultaneous elections, or one nation, one election. Lastly, what should we do going ahead? We need a constructive debate on this issue to evolve consensus, and we need to carry out other electoral reforms in the meantime so that the electoral process becomes more efficient and clean. So that's it about the idea of one nation, one election. And if you like the content, if you like the session, please hit like and subscribe.